Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel Crocheting Around My Kitchen Table. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you know when I upload a new video tutorial. This tutorial is for my Axolotl, or in English, Axolotl Plush Keychain. For this project you will need any worsted weight yarn, your color of choice. I will be using a lighter shade for the main part. This is Yarn Bee's Soft and Sleek in Pink Stripe. I will be using a dark complementary color for the trim on the gills. This is I Love This Yarn in Hot Rose. And you will need a small amount of yarn to make a mouth. You will need an H or 5mm hook for the main part of the crocheting. And for the trim on the gills, you can use a G or 4mm hook. You will need a pair of safety eyes of choice, or if you prefer, you can use French knots. You will need a needle, a pair of scissors, and a keychain. So let's get started. First, we'll begin by making a magic ring. If you don't want to use the magic ring, I have alternate instructions to make a chain loop in the description box below the video. Going to wrap the tail around 2 fingers, making an X by crossing it over. I'm going to insert my hook under the right side, over the left side, and pull. I'm going to make a little twist to make a little loop. I'm going to pinch it between my fingers to hold it in place. I'm going to wrap the working yarn in my tension hand. I'm going to chain 1, and we're ready to begin round 1. For round 1, we will make 6 yarn under single crochets. Now whether you're using the magic ring or the chain 4 loop, please be sure to crochet around the tail so that at the end of the round you just pull the tail and it cinches that center closed. Going to make the first yarn under single crochet by inserting my hook into the magic ring, placing the yarn under the hook. It's normally over the hook. We're going to yarn under the hook, pull that yarn through, yarn over, and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. Once again, insert your hook, yarn under the hook, pull through, yarn over the hook, and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. I've made 2 yarn under single crochets. I will meet you at the end when we have all 6 yarn under single crochets. I have finished the 6 yarn under single crochets and will now pull the tail to close the center. I'm going to place my stitch marker at the end of each round. You can certainly place yours at the beginning of the round if you like to mark your rounds that way. And that ends round 1. For round 2, I will place 2 yarn under single crochets in each stitch from round 1 for a total of 12 yarn under single crochets. I will meet you at the end of round 2. I have finished placing 2 yarn under single crochets in each stitch around. I will move my stitch marker to the last stitch of the round to mark the end. That ends round 2. For round 3, you will place 1 yarn under single crochet into the very first stitch. In the next stitch, you will do an increase of 2 yarn under single crochet. You will continue that pattern of 1 yarn under single crochet and 2 yarn under single crochet in the next stitch to the very last stitch of round 2. I will meet you at the end of round 3. I am here at the end of the round and will place my last 2 yarn under single crochets in the last stitch of the round. You should have a total of 18 yarn under single crochets for round 3. I'll now move my stitch marker to mark the end of the round. For round 4, you will place 1 yarn under single crochet into the first 2 stitches. In the next stitch, you will do an increase of 2 yarn under single crochet. You will repeat that pattern of 1 yarn under single crochet, 1 yarn under single crochet, and 2 yarn under single crochet to the very end of the round. I will meet you at the end of the round. I am placing my last 2 yarn under single crochets for the end of round 4. I'm going to move my stitch marker to the last stitch of the round. You should have a total of 24 yarn under single crochets for round 4. That ends round 4. For round 5, you will place 1 yarn under single crochet in each stitch around for a total of 24 yarn under single crochets. I will meet you at the end of round 5. I'm here at the end of round 5. I have not completed round 5 by placing my last yarn under single crochet in the stitch marker. I'm going to move my stitch marker first and just place it in the front loop of the last stitch of round 4. I'm going to leave this stitch marker in place because it will be my guide for placing the gills when we're done with the head of the plush. I'm going to finish off the round, placing my last yarn under single crochet, and I'm going to start using a new stitch marker to mark the end of the next rounds. For rounds 6, 7, 8, and 9, you will repeat round 5 by placing 1 yarn under single crochet in each stitch around. Continue to move your stitch marker for each round, and I will meet you at the end of round 9. I have finished placing the last yarn under single crochet for round 9. I'm going to move my stitch marker, but I'm not going to place it in the last stitch. I'm going to place it in the front loop of the last stitch for round 8. This stitch marker will be my guide for placing my safety eyes in the front. I'm going to use a new stitch marker for the next rounds. From the stitch marker that I marked at the end of the 8th round, I'm going to count 8 stitches over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Between the 8th and the 9th stitch, I'm going to place my first safety eye. And this is just a suggested placement. You can certainly place the eyes wherever you like for your plush. I'm going to count 5 over. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Between the 13th and the 14th is where I'm going to put my second safety eye. I have already placed the gaskets for the back of my safety eyes. I'm going to take this opportunity to run some thread underneath the magic ring to tighten that down to make sure that it's not going to come undone. I'm not going to trim it, I'm just going to anchor it and tighten it down. It's just extra stuffing for me because I like to use scraps too. Just to make sure it's not going to accidentally open up and then the stuffing starts coming out. Now I'm going to place the smile. For my smile, I've decided to go to a smaller hook size, a G hook, because I want a thinner smile. I've also separated a 4-ply piece of worsted weight yarn in black. I just take the ply at the end and separate 2 pieces, and then I slide one off because it's such a small piece, approximately about 10 to 12 inches. I don't need a whole lot for a smile. I'm going to place my hook And this is where I'm going to place my smile. You can certainly make it as big, as small, as thick, or as thin as you'd like. I'm going to count 2 rows down. I'm going to make a small loop. I'll place it on my hook and bring it through. And what I'm going to do is called a surface slip stitch. I'm going to take the small tail, I'm going to place it over here out of the way, kind of tighten that down, and then I'm going to go diagonally or go down 1 and over to the left 1, insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, and pull through the loop on my hook. I'm going to straighten out my smile by going in this direction. The next stitch over, I'm going to yarn over, pull through the loop on my hook, insert the hook into the next stitch over, yarn over, pull through the loop on my hook. I'm going to go over one more, insert my hook, yarn over, pull through the loop on my hook, and then I'm going to go diagonally to line it up with the other eye, yarn over, pull through the loop on my hook. I'm going to take out my hook to see how my smile's lined up. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to just pull the loop out. Then I'm going to insert my hook in the same place to bring that tail in on the inside here. I don't want to pull with the hook. I want to have a little bit more control by using my fingers so I don't make it too thin. I'm going to pull on this side to make it a little bit thinner and straighten that out a little bit more. And there we have our smile. Continuing on, I'm going to take out the stitch marker here that I only had for my eye placement. I still have the stitch marker marking the last stitch of round 9. For round 10, this will be a decrease round. I'm going to place 1 yarn under single crochet in the first stitch, 1 yarn under single crochet in the next stitch. In the next 2 stitches, we're going to do an invisible decrease. I'm going to insert my hook in the front loop of the next stitch, insert my hook in the front loop of the stitch after. I'm going to do a yarn under, pull through those 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops on my hook. And I have done 1 invisible decrease. We're going to repeat that pattern. 1 yarn under single crochet in the next stitch, 1 yarn under single crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to make an invisible decrease. Insert my hook in the front loop of the first stitch there, insert my hook into the second stitch following, yarn under, pull through the 2 loops, yarn over, and finish that invisible decrease. You will repeat that pattern all the way around to the stitch marker, and I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of round 10, where I'm going to make the last of my invisible decreases for the round. My stitch marker to that last stitch I just made. You should have a total of 18 stitches for this round. That's 12 yarn under single crochets and 6 decreases, but because they're hard to see this way, I usually like to just count the V-stitches at the top. That ends round 10. Round 11 is a decrease round. You will place 1 yarn under single crochet into the first stitch, and you will make 1 invisible decrease by using the next 2 stitches. You will continue that pattern of 1 yarn under single crochet and 1 invisible decrease all the way to the stitch marker. I will meet you at the end of round 11. I'm here at the end of round 11 where I'm going to make my last invisible decrease of the round. I'm going to move my stitch marker. You should have a total of 12 stitches for round 11 just by counting the top of the V stitches. And that ends round 11. After round 11 is where I like to place the stuffing inside the plush. Before I close it even further, I'm going to combine yarn scraps and polyfill. I'm going to place the yarn scraps at the bottom, and then I'm going to put polyfill in the middle because I do want it to be firm, but I want it to also be kind of squishy. I think I can put a little bit more, not too much more. It's always hard to tell these things, how much will be enough and how much will be too little. I think we can put a little bit more. And then at the very top, I'm going to put a little bit more yarn scraps to give that firmness at the top. Make sure I don't have too much, but just enough. And I can certainly add and take out some fill before I really close it. We still have one more round of a decrease. You can see there's a little bit of room back there, but once we bring it in closer, it might just be enough. Round 12 is a decrease round. We will begin by making an invisible decrease in the first 2 stitches. You will continue making invisible decreases all the way to the stitch marker for a total of 6 invisible decreases. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of round 12 and I have not finished my last invisible decrease because I take this opportunity to make sure I have enough stuffing. Sometimes when you're crocheting and you do the decreases, the polyfill or the yarn settles differently in shifts. So I had too little and I added some more, but I didn't want to add too much because I don't want the stitches to separate and form gaps where you can see the stuffing. And I certainly didn't want to be too little because it had caved in at the top, and I certainly didn't have enough because it had spread the polyfill and the yarn sideways when I started my decrease. But I definitely wanted it like this, firm but not too firm, because I want it to be a little bit oval like that. A little bit flat on the top, a little bit flat on the bottom. I am now going to finish round 12 by placing my last invisible decrease. Going to move the stitch marker to the last stitch. I'm going to make a slip stitch into the first invisible decrease we made in the round. Just a simple slip stitch. Going to cut my yarn tail about 6 to 8 inches. I'm just going to pull the loop out and tighten that down. That ends round 12. For the last round, we're going to cinch closed the opening. I've already threaded the tail onto my needle. In the next stitch from the slip stitch, I'm going to insert my needle from the bottom up, grabbing just that front loop, and weave the yarn through there. Going to do that again for the next one, the third one, the fourth one. Here's that last stitch. We'll go ahead and take out that stitch marker. Front loop only. And in that very first stitch where we made that slip stitch, I'm going to just take that front loop again and weave my needle through there. Going to pull, and I'm going to weave in the yarn tail through the top part here a little bit, through those loops that we made with the yarn. And then I'm just going to weave in the tails. I'm going to go through the top part, come out the bottom to anchor that in place. And just come out the other side here, somewhere else. And go through it again. Just to hide it a little bit better. Oops, this is too short. Or it just came off my needle. No biggie. I can pick it up. I'm going to pull that a little bit so that I can make that little tail disappear. We're now going to make the gills. I'm going to turn the head to the left, and that left eye is at the top and the right eye is at the bottom. I'm going to turn it towards the back to find that stitch marker. I'm going to count 4 stitches from that stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4. In this stitch, this vertical stitch right here, right there, I'm going to insert my hook, and this is where I'm going to begin my first gill. If you want to, you can also count it from the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Between the 5th and the 6th round is where you need to be. At least that's where I'm going to place them. The gills are usually towards the back of the head. So I'm going to just join my yarn, same color, and just make a simple little join, making sure I want to anchor this tail this way a little bit. I'm going to tighten that down, and I'm ready to begin my first gill. To begin our first gill, I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. In the second chain from the hook, I'm going to place 1 slip stitch, making sure to go under 2 loops. In the next chain, I'm going to make another slip stitch, but this time only under the top loop or 1 loop. In the next chain, I'm going to place 1 single crochet. In the next chain, I'm going to place 1 half double crochet. This is not a chain, this was the join, and it's going to disappear when I tighten it again. I'm going to place a slip stitch into the same vertical stitch we started in to close out that first gill. In the next vertical stitch, we're going to place 1 slip stitch. We've made 1 gill and 1 slip stitch. In the next vertical stitch, you will place 1 slip stitch and begin a second gill. Same as the first one, you're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll place a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook under 2 loops. You'll place one slip stitch in the next chain under one loop. You'll place one single crochet in the next chain under one loop. And in the last chain, you will place one half double crochet under one loop only. And you will finish that gill by placing a slip stitch in the same place where we began our chain. Now you have 2 gills. In the next vertical stitch, you will place one slip stitch. In the next vertical stitch, you will place one slip stitch and begin your 3rd gill. You will chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will place a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook under 2 loops. Slip stitch into the next chain, top loop only. One single crochet into the next chain, one loop only. One half double crochet into the next chain, one loop only. Slip stitch right back into that same vertical stitch. Now I'm going to fasten off. Tighten that down and weave in my tails. And there's one side of our gills. I'm now going to place a trim around our gills. I'm going to insert my hook in the same place where we began the first gill, same vertical stitch, join my darker contrasting yarn, a little tricky getting around these, and then I'm just going to anchor that down. I'm going to place a slip stitch along this ridge here, the bottom of that chain that we first made. Make sure I get that first one. Should be 4 initially. 1, 2, 3, 4. At the very top, I'm going to place one slip stitch and make a picot, chain 1 and 2, slip stitch right into that second chain. And then I'm going to slip stitch in the back loop only of the stitches that we made. And that should be 4. And then I'm going to slip stitch right into that slip stitch that was made to close out the gill. Going to slip stitch into the slip stitch that was made into the next stitch. You can see that it's getting kind of closed in there a little bit. Going to slip stitch into the slip stitch that was made to begin the next gill. And then I'm just going to repeat the slip stitches and the picot that we made for the next gill, for the next slip stitch, and the last gill. I will meet you at the end. I'm here at the end of the third gill, and I'm going to place my last slip stitch into the last slip stitch that we made to close that third gill. And then I'm just going to go right into that vertical stitch to finish the trim. I'm going to cut a piece. And fasten off. Tighten that down and weave in my tails. And there is a complete left side of our external gills. We will now make the gills on the right side. Turn the head towards the back, and from that bottom stitch marker, count 5 rounds to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. At the top of this stitch, which is round 9, you will place a stitch marker. You will count 5 stitches to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in this vertical stitch between round 10 and 9 is where you will begin the first gill. Make sure to turn it to the right so that you're working along these vertical stitches. You will join the same color of yarn to that first vertical stitch and follow the exact same pattern that you did on the left side. You will place 1 gill in the first stitch, a slip stitch, a second gill, a slip stitch, and a third gill. I will meet you at the end of the third gill. I have finished making my third gill, and we'll just now fasten off. And that completes the first part of our right gills. Using the G-hook, I went ahead and placed the dark pink trim around the gills that we made on the right side, placing slip stitches along the chain, making picots at the top, placing slip stitches in the back loops only of the stitches that we made, including the slip stitches between the gills. We have finished our Axolotl plush keychain. I'm going to demonstrate how I make my keychain loop. I make sure I have a long enough tail at the very beginning so there is enough for me to make a knot and weave it through the plush. I start by making my slip knot, and this is just how I do it. I wrap it around my finger twice, left over right, and over my finger, tighten the tail to tighten the knot, and then I pull on the working yarn to tighten it on my hook. I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can make it as short or as long as you want. You can even make it into a wristlet if you want. Now I'm going to cut a good piece, same size as preferably the first tail. I'm going to just pull on the hook and pull that loop out and tighten it. I'm going to simply knot this on the top part of my plush and then weave in the rest of the tails through the rest of the plush. I finished my axolotl by placing the keychain onto the keychain loop. No keychain loop is necessary. I went ahead and just placed it at the top of this plush. For darker colors, I placed a single line of white yarn underneath the eyes and the corners to make them stand out against the darker shades. For this plush, I decided to have a little bit of fun. I added some texture to the gills using this eyelash yarn. I did have to trim quite a bit of the eyelash because I had lost the definition between the gills, but I do like the end result. For these eyes, I added a bit of white felt underneath in the corners to make them stand out against the darker shade. This has been my video tutorial for the Axolotl or Axolotl plush keychain. Thanks again for visiting my channel, Crocheting Around My Kitchen Table. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you know when I upload a new video tutorial. Thanks again for watching.